All right, let's start out by saying Barakateh Hawa, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Ruchakudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is basically of various topics dated June 23rd, 2025, the hopeful year of our deliverance and destruction and judgment of Esau. And pretty much, you know, I just want to speak on a few things, as the Spirit allows. Just some information I've been gathering, a little here, a little there on different things. And one thing I do want to speak on is this whole situation going on in out over there in the land of Israel, Iran, the war, and pretty much what these small hats are, doing in that region. Pretty much is destabilizing the region, overthrowing regimes so that they can insert themselves in there. Or if not themselves, then individuals that have their best interests at heart. Like here in America and other places around the world that they've infiltrated. Now, as we speak, there's a war going on between Israel and Iran. And also you have America involved in this war also because they just finished bombing 3 of their nuclear sites. We don't know what the damage is because, when you listen to the mainstream media, especially here in America and even other medias around the world, they're reporting on a biased, standpoint or stand view. They're not really telling you the truth because they will be banned or be labeled as anti-Sem for anything that any of them devils get annoyed with. They'll call you, that word or that phrase. And what they want to do is they want to get rid of the individual that's actually there now. The for lack of better words, the reigning. I don't know what they call them in Iran, premiers or whatever they call them. Matter of fact, just bear with me 1 second. This is all just off the off the top to the Spirit. So just bear with me. What is the leader of Iran title? The leader of Iran officially titled the Supreme Leader of Iran. Okay, Supreme Leader. And the Supreme Leader, so they call him the Supreme Leader, okay? Who is, you have Ayatollahs. Ayatollahs is the leader of Iran. You had, back in the days, you had Ayatollah Khomeini. Yeah, the current supreme leader is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and I believe those are titles that they use for their leaders also. So he's the supreme leader of Iran, but they're also called Ayatollahs. And the individual that's there now is Ali Khamenei, and what they want to do is they want to replace him with this individual right here that you see right here. Reza Pahlavi. He is of Iranian descent. He is, against the regime in Iran, been that way all his life. He was trained, as a pilot. He also came to the Americas for his schooling. And I just want to read a couple of things on this real quick. Like I said, based off of a IG video that brother sent me. I was doing a little bit of research, and This is from Wikipedia, right? It says, what does Reza Pahlavi do now? It says Reza Pahlavi has been called. Well, this is actually not from. Yeah, this is from Wikipedia. It's a little clip. It says Reza Pahlavi has been called the poster boy of the democracy movement in Iran. He is the founder and leader of the National Council of Iran, an exiled Iranian opposition group. He is also a proponent of a free referendum in Iran to determine the nature of the future government. Right. So to some people that might sound, benevolent, but as we continue reading through here, right, it says Pahlavi obtained a BSc degree in political science by correspondence from the University of Southern California in 1985. Key points. He is fluent in English and French in addition to his native Persian, right? Now, when we jump down further, right, it says in March, he issued a statement for the Persian New Year. He urged all opponents of Iranian governments to unite behind him and wage a national resistance. Still, he chose to remain silent and made no reaction when President Abul Hassan Banasir was deposed and the assassination of tens of officials, including Chief Justice Mohammad Beheshti, took place in June. In August, Pahlavi announced that he had been secretly planning to overthrow the Iranian government. All right, and it goes on and on and on. But I just wanted to just give you like a little insight on this guy that he's pretty much been set up, and this is who they want to put in there as the new puppet leader of Iran. Now check this out. In the video that brother sent, they show him. I'm not gonna. I don't have the video, so I'm just gonna show you a picture. At the what? At the wall. And what does he have on his head? A yarmulke. Reza Pahlavi visits occupied Palestine after anti-Iran campaign fails. See? And this is dated April 18, 2023. This is like about 2 years ago. And you can see him there. So who is he, gonna be if they install him, which we don't believe that they will, and even if they do, they're still the prophecy is still gonna go forward because Iran, plays a pivotal role in prophecy, along with Russia. But they want to install this guy there because the small hats have infiltrated all facets of government around the world. This is why everywhere you go, they're pushing what? If you say anything about these people, if you have a criticism, or if don't like, their point of view or whatever the case may be, they label you anti-Sem. And that's what this is all about. So this is what these devils are doing. And we've been saying for years, even before all this happened, that these, small hats, big hats, small hats, what they're going to do is they're going to lead America into this third world war because according to prophecy, there will be 3 world wars. Let's go to Revelation chapter 8 and verse 13. It says, "And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe." Why did he say it 3 times? Because this is a representation of major wars on the planet to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. Now, let's just look up this word woe. Because woe is because it says with a loud voice, it's a statement of, terror, horror, see? Or wahi, alas, woe, see? A primary exclamation of grief, woe, alas, woe. So it's an exclamation of grief, because remember the Lord said when he comes back, there's going to be, weeping and gnashing of teeth. And during these wars, there was weeping and gnashing of teeth, from the masses of people that were being affected by this war. the actual military men going to war, having to grit their teeth and fight in the midst of all that chaos and all of that stress, the deep stressful environments, and that's what's coming. Now notice it said three times, whoa, 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 because that's a representation of three world wars. These are the three major wars that will happen on the earth prior to the Lord Yahweh Shai coming back. And in the midst of the third one, that's when he's coming. So now we're in the midst of World War III, you know. You see all the major players there. You see what's going on. As a matter of fact, as we speak right now, Elder Pastor is doing a video, on the Northern Army. I will remove far from the Northern Army, which Lord's will after this lesson. I'd like to tap into that and listen to that video, but I just wanted to, say a few words on this because this is important because it pertains to prophecy. So Revelation 9 and 12 is one woe is past. So World War I is past. And when you understand properly with the proper understanding, if the Holy Spirit is with you, when you read the verses above Revelation 9, from Revelation 9 and 1 to the 11th verse, that's dealing with World War One. All right. So it says one war is past. So that war passed, which is World War One. And that happened between 1914, 1919, I believe it was. It says, and behold, what? There come two woes more hereafter. Not three, not one, but two more. So we have World War One happened in the 1900s. World War II happened in the 1900s. Now we're in the 2000s, and now we're seeing World War III, mounting up. But the Third World War will not end until the MOTB system is in place, which is a micro CHIP, and the majority of the people on the planet Earth become micro CHIPed. All right, because I said before that the war could start, World War III could start, but it's not going to come to an end, so to speak, until the mandatory implementation of the micro CHIP. All right, and you see that already on the planet, digital systems everywhere, everything digital. All the nations of the planet Earth, 134 nations of the planet Earth, are either have a digital currency, are in the works of getting a digital currency, or are thinking about getting a digital currency. See? All right, so let's go now to Revelation 11. Revelation chapter 11. So that's one woe past, two woes more come hereafter. We go to Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe is past. World War II is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Yeah, because you got to remember, from 1914 to now, it's been a little more than 100 years. To the Lord, that's nothing. 1,000 years in the Lord's sight is nothing. That ain't nothing. 1,000 years with the Lord is one day. So 100 years, 100 plus years, it's nothing. It's just like a few minutes. So the third woe is coming, which is, we see it happening right now. All the major players being brought over there to the Levant, to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, in the so-called Middle East. Over there in the desert, as the video I'm sure Elder Pastor is going into. Like I said, I haven't watched it yet. But these are things we've been breaking down for decades. All right, and it's no coincidence that there's a book, right, called Satan's Angels Exposed, by Salem Kerbin. There you go, right there. And in this book, right, let me just go to an image so you can see it a little better. I'm not sure how big this one is. Yeah, this might be big enough. In this book right here, right, it's not that big, but you can see it. Let me just get rid of this because you can see it right there. In this book right here, he highlights a letter or correspondence letter between Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini, where they drew up. Look at this. This is $74. Used to be able to buy this like 10, $15, at the Christian Bible bookstore down the street, from One West, or you could have ordered it online. For it wasn't much, but look at that, $74. And in this book, he highlights the letter that was going back and forth between Albert Pike and Giuseppe Mazzini, where they said that they wanted to foment 3 world wars, and they broke down each world war and what it would entail for each world war and what the purpose was. The first one, pretty much was to take down, the Tsar of Russia, and that the Christian, values, and install, communism, which they did. And the reason why they really did it was to take the riches from the Tsar, because he wasn't falling for the okie doke with these bankers. He already knew what the deal was with them. Then you have World War II, which was set up and established to fulfill so-called a letter that was declared back in 1917, the Balfour Declaration, to pretty much steal a homeland for the JOOS, the small hats. And then World War III would be fomented against the Zionists and the Islamic world, as you see going on right now. So all these things have been in the works for the longest. And what they don't understand is that this goes along with prophecy. You see? So going back to Revelation 11:14, the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Now, we're going to go here to Jeremiah 49 and 7. We're going to read the 7th verse, and then we're going to jump down, because this is talking about now. This is concerning Edom, as you see here. Who are the Edomites? The so-called white people. But not all so-called white-looking people are Edomites. It's only if their line goes back to the Edomites. And that's like a whole topic, a whole, in-depth. It's a project, pretty much, that you would, have to sit down and dive in deep into that to really understand what is meant by Edomite. It's talking about the people that descend to the Edomites. Now you have some so-called white-looking people that are Israelites. You have some so-called white-looking people that are Hamites. You have some so-called white-looking people that are so-called Arabs, so-called East Indian, so-called Chinese, so-called Japanese. It all depends on who the father is. If the father was an Edomite, then doesn't matter what that baby looks like, it's an Edomite. And vice versa. If you have an Israelite, it doesn't matter what that Israelite looks like as long as his father is an Israelite. He could look like a Chinese, a Hamite, he could look like a white boy, whatever the case may be. If his father's line goes back to an Israelite of one of the 12 tribes, guess what? He's an Israelite. And that's, even to this day, even though you have examples of that, all throughout this technological age, you still have people that are blind to it. Even Israelites that know that they're Israelites are still blind to that fact, because they can't see beyond color. They can't see beyond hair texture. They can't see beyond hair color. They can't see beyond eye color. If it looks white, it's white. You see? But that goes into something else. So Jeremiah 49:7, concerning Edom, the Edomites, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman. Now, when you understand Teman are the Germans, all right? And Teman are the wisest tribe of the Edomites. Matter of fact, there's a scripture. I'm not sure what it says. I think it's spelled Teman like this. Just bear with me. It's in the Apocrypha. I believe it's in. Okay, you have here Baruch 3:22. It had not been heard of in Canaan, neither had it been seen in Teman. The Hagarenes, which are Hamites. No, I believe those are Ishmaelites. Going back to Hagar, if I'm not mistaken. that seek wisdom upon earth, the merchants of Meran and of Teman, the authors of fables and searchers out of understanding. None of these have known the way of wisdom or remember her past, right? Because they don't know the way of wisdom to the knowledge of the truth and the mysteries of Yahweh Bashem Shai. But as far as understanding and as far as, wisdom in this world, they have it. Those are the wise men of Teman. And this is why the majority of the weapon technology of today of these missiles goes back to who? Goes back to these Temanites or these so-called Germans. All right. So that's why the Lord said over here is wisdom no more in Teman, right? Because you are not going to be able to escape out of the judgment of the Most High. All these hundreds of years, right? These centennials, I believe they're called, which are 100-year periods. You have been able to manipulate the world. You have been able to, with your wisdom, deceive the people. With your wisdom, build your empire, build your military, your weapons and all of that. You've been able to get out of sticky situations, and prevail against mighty nations. But you're not going to be able to prevail against the Most High. There's no counsel. There's nothing that you could do. There's no form of wisdom, no higher learning, higher wisdom, technology, weaponry that you can, economic basis that you could establish that's going to fight against Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. You're finished. So it says, is counsel perished from the prudent? The prudent are the wise. Is their wisdom vanished? Yeah. Why? Because when the Lord comes back and comes to destroy you, you're not going to have any alternatives. Because one thing about these devils is they leave no stone unturned. I'm going to come back to this, but let's go real quick to Psalm 64. They leave no stone unturned. All right? Psalm 64 and 6. They search out iniquities because everything they do and accomplish, right, is based off of wickedness. What is iniquity? Iniquity or iniquities are compounded sins, right? They search out iniquity. So anything that's evil and wicked, that's what they're looking at. They searching all these things out. So they've searched, right? They accomplish what? A diligent search, meaning they leave no stone unturned. When you diligently search something, you're tediously, picking through every, you, like they say, dotting your I's and crossing your T's. You're going through every amount of research, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that's out there to the least common denominator to get down to the bottom of it. And then when they get down to the bottom of it, what they do, they pick the most evil shit out of that. It says both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep, right? Because they don't tell you what their intentions are behind these searches, behind, these ventures that they got. They'll just give you like surface stuff. It's for your benefit, it's for your good, sustainable development, and this, that, and the other. But what they don't tell you is that it's to your detriment and to their benefit. All right. So going back to Jeremiah 49, right, we're going to jump down to the 20th verse, because you have some clowns out there that say that this is not talking about, the small hats and the situation that's going on over there, that this already happened. Now, I believe they said it happened during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. I haven't seen the actual video, but Elder Yashwama was speaking on it, and I believe I saw a thumbnail where they put that up. But they like to make them super long videos, so I'm not gonna waste 2 hours of my life or however long the video was to try to find the nook and crannies. But brothers actually search these things out. Some brothers got that spirit. I could shout out some names right now. So Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So this is the Heavenly Father's counsel that He had taken against Edom. Yeah, because who is the top of the Edomites? The small hats. How do we know that? Matter of fact, let's get it. Matter of fact, what's this here? What's this? Okay. Let me go from there. Let's go to Numbers 24. And this scripture here is a twofold scripture. All right. This is the book of Numbers 24 and 20. 20, verse 20. And when he looked on Amalek, Amalek is one of the tribes of the Edomites. You had Esau, he had 5 sons. They had sons and sons and sons. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Amalek would be either a grandson or a great grandson of Esau. All right, and this is where these small hats come from. He took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations. Now, what's that? That's twofold. It was the first of the nations that we actually had war with, and it's also the first or the top nation on the planet. And if you say different, then you either just a total bug out, totally blind, or you are on their side. And you know this, but you're going to use plausible deniability, as they call it, plausible deniability. Because in all facets of society, whether it's politics, whether it's economy, resources, or whatever the case may be, they're involved in all facets of society. They've infiltrated all facets of government. All right. And everything that you see going on in the earth, as far as, legislation is concerned, is to protect them. Everything is, they're they're victimizers, but they play the victim. It says, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever, right? Because along with the rest of the Edomites, you're going to be thrown in that pit at the end of your 1,000-year slavery and burnt up also, and you will perish forever. I believe even in Ezekiel 35th chapter, it speaks about you being destroyed forever. Also in Obadiah. So now let's go back to Jeremiah 49:20. Therefore hear the counsel of the Lord that he had taken against Edom, and his purpose that he had purpose against the inhabitants of Teman. Right, because these Temanites are the Germans. And you have a lot of those small hats that come out of that region. They call them Ashkenazi, JOOSs, but they're really Amalekites. They're really Edomites. And even Eustace Mullins called them Turco-Edomites because they are Edomites of a Turkish stock. Those Edomites that were up in the Caucasus Mountains. And boy, that when that came out, that information came out. Matter of fact, I even I had 2 copies of it. I gave one to the Elder Kanak. I had 2 copies of a Wall Street Journal post in one of their newspapers where it actually spoke about the book, The 13th Tribe, and it said a something in the how was it worded? How was it worded? I can't remember. Something found in the Caucasus or something like that. I can't remember the actual wording, but they were referencing, the 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler, and that I forget what year that came out. I'm not sure if that was the 70s or 80s, but they were pretty much exposing that, and I forgot if they say that he committed suicide or if he died, whatever the case may be, but they took him out. Because he came to the conclusion after all of his research that if them small hats are Israelites, then they would have to be a 13th tribe. And then you type that in, 13th tribe, Arthur Koestler, oh, that's been dispelled, it's been debunked, and it is that. Because they don't want the truth to come out. The cat's already out the bag, dude. It says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Draw who out? The American Edomite, Babylon the Great. When you go into the 51st, either the 50th or the 51st chapter of the same book, it ties this in with the America or Babylon the Great. It says the same exact thing. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Matter of fact, let me just copy this. And then I'm going to come right back to this. Paste, enter. It's going to come up in 2 scriptures. Jeremiah 49:20, Jeremiah 50:45. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord that he hath taken against Babylon. right? Which this is America, and this proves that Babylon and Babylon the Great and the Edomites are connected. Okay, and then when you go to Psalms 137 chapter, it also connects the Edomites and Babylon. And his purpose is that he had purpose against the land of the Chaldeans. And in this case, instead of Teman, you have the Chaldeans, which the Chaldeans were the top cabinet of wise men among the ancient Babylonians. But this is modern day today. All right? It says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. And that's what the Lord's going to do. He's going to destroy, totally annihilate the America, Babylon the Great, which is known scripturally also as Edom. And in order for the so-called prophecy that Hakar was talking about, that the land of Edom over there, that's where the lake of fire is going to be. The people of the Edomites have to be in that land in order for that prophecy, his so-called prophecy, to be fulfilled. And they're not there. Because it tells us in Isaiah 34 that the people are going to be there when he destroys them. All right? So, it's going back. So, let's read that last part again. Surely the least of the flock, which are the small hats, shall draw them out. And you see that happening right now. They actually use the preemptive strike. And let me make sure because preemptive strike is like when you strike first. Pre is first. Preemptive strike. Let me see. Preemptive. Okay, I forgot the P. A preemptive strike is a military attack against an enemy force in anticipation of an imminent attack from them. Right. So that's what happened. So they made the world believe that Iran was going to attack them. They're close, or they got the so before they get this and put the final touches on it and strike us, we're going to strike them. So they struck them first. So it wasn't America that did it, even though indirectly it was. The small hats are the ones that started that melee going on over there that we see happening right now, in that region of the world. And as we speak now, I believe now Israel is shooting missiles on Iran. Iran was just laying them low, boom, boom, boom. And then now they're retaliating, So this is who is doing it. Then came America, right? Talking about they gave these people, ample opportunity. We're going to give them 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. And boom, they nuked 3 of their, not nuked, I'm sorry. They bombed 3 of their nuclear sites. You see? For who? For the small hats. Because these Amalekites deemed or dubbed Trump as the king of Babylon. Let's see some. Trump, the king. I'm sorry, not the king of Babylon, the king of Edom. Let's see. And that's what they got no kings day or whatever the case may be. There was somewhere. See, look, they got right there Messiah Trump. I don't know if you can see that. Then they got King of Kings. This is a straight up. Hey, that's what the scriptures say. That the horn had a great mouth, speaking speaking blasphemy against the Most High. I know I've seen it before. Let me see. Did Israel call Trump? Did Israel call Trump the king of Babylon? There you go. He's a small hat, converted. He's here with this cat. Netting, nada, and look at his hand. Look at his hand gesture. Look at him here with the small hats. All right, and this is why what they do is they insert these individuals into office that are going to set up legislation and favor for the small hats. Let's see what it says here in all. The search results do not contain information indicating that Israel as a nation or its government has officially called Donald Trump the king of Edom. However, the term Edom is sometimes used symbolically in Jewish tradition, and there have been discussions relating to Donald Trump within this framework. And Israel, calling him the king of Israel in 2019. Yeah, I know I've seen it somewhere. I know I'm not bugging. I know you brothers, I'm sure you brothers have seen it also. I mean, I haven't seen any comments popping up, but I guess they are. Okay. I don't see them on this. Oh, you know what? Let me just check. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me check, make sure that these the comments, okay, they're not on. That's why. Okay, they should be on now. All right. And I know, like I said, I know I'm not bugging. I know I've seen that before, but it's all good. But they're also Edomites. They call him the king of Israel, but he's also the king of Edom right now. So that's these small hats are the ones driving America, Babylon the Great, into this war. And who was at the behest of that? The small hats. You see? So, it's getting intense. And that's why they're trying to insert this guy here, Reza Pahlavi, who himself, because they made Trump convert, he converted. See? Got him there. And he's against the Iranian regime. And he might be a small hat himself. He got that nose. He might just be a small hat himself that happened to be born in that region. You got a lot of underhanded shit going on. But this is going to fulfill prophecy. Matter of fact, I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need this anymore. Did Reza Pahlavi convert to JOOism? No, there is no evidence to suggest that converted to JOOism. He identifies as a Shia Muslim and expressed faith. However, Shah Reza's father prohibited the forced conversion of Jews to Islam, allowed them practice openly. See, the Shah also prayed at a synagogue at a symbolic gesture of solidarity with the JOOish community, but he's in support of them. And you saw the picture. Okay, so now let's switch gears a little bit. All right, now you have this thing where, the IUIC and other Israelite groups out there from One West, and others that are not from One West, even them Old Testament heads, teach that the Sabbath is on Saturday, Friday night to Saturday night, and that's not the case. And then they'll try to, bring out sources that speak about Saturday being called Sabbaton, which Sabbaton is a Greek word for Sabbath, but it has nothing to do with Saturday. Because when you go to, I just typed in, what did Greeks call Saturday, right? In ancient Greece, Saturday was called Hera Krunao, which is a day of Chronos. right? Which translates to day of Chronos. Chronos was the Greek equivalent of the Roman god Saturn, for whom the day was named according to online etymology resources. So, no matter how you slice it, the ancient Greeks and the Romans didn't call Saturday the Sabbath because they weren't following the Sabbath. They were calling it after their Greek gods. When you look at the days of the week, the days of the week were named after Greek and Roman gods and goddesses. All you gotta do is do a little research, and you see that the months were called after either after Roman gods. You know, they were called either after Roman Caesars, or they were called after Roman feasts. Okay, had or just numbers. So it had nothing to do with the Sabbath. They were not keeping the Sabbath. They had nothing to do with the Sabbath. So why would they name the days of their weeks after, our high holy days? All right. Now check this out. Matter of fact, let's type in. Let's see what this says here. See if we put in Friday, because another one they'll try to say that they'll try to say that the and this is off right here because this is not this is the modern day um, term for Friday, Paraskevi, and Paraskevi pretty much means the day of preparation in the scriptures, and then they'll use that for Friday and then Sabbaton for Saturday. That's not what it means. The ancient way of saying Friday was it goes back to Venus. This is why in Spanish you have a Friday is called Viernes. Viernes goes back to Venus. All right, the brightest star in the morning has nothing to do with with the uh, the day of preparation of the scriptures, the day before the Sabbath, has nothing to do with that. Let's see, what did the ancient? Nope, that's not it. There was another term. That's not it. That's the modern day term. Right there, here we go. The name Friday originates from American English and is derived from the Old English word frigid, meaning the day of Frigga. In Norse mythology, Frigga was the goddess of marriage, motherhood, and domestic affairs. Um, Use the term Sunday as the Lord's Day or Kodiak as the first day of the week. Nah, that this bullshit. See, the day of preparation, which that's BS. That's not this. That's a modern term for Friday. Sabbaton is a modern Greek term for Sabbath. What is the original name for Friday? Their most important goddess was one who is now usually known as Frigga, right, which goes back to Venus. Her name in Old English was Frigg, and the sixth day of the week was called Frigga Day, see, meaning day of Frigg, in her honor. Uh, then you got here Hemera Aphrodites. Hemera is day in Greek, and Aphrodites, that's another name for Venus. All right, see, and the Romans called Friday Dies Venedis, which goes back into Viernes or Venus. There was no word for Friday in the Hebrew. Nope, Shasha, that's 6 day. Nope, Shasha is six. That's not what there was no such thing as Friday back then. Frigga Day. Let me see something. Is Frigga the same as Venus? Let's see what that says. No, Frigga is not the same as Venus. While they are both prominent goddesses in their respective mythologies, Norse and Romans respectively. What is Frigga? How could I word this? Let's see. See, look. Let me see something. Wife, Odin, mother, brother. Venus is the Roman goddess of love, beauty, desire, fertility, prosperity. I'm trying to think of how I could word it better. Let's do it this way. Did the Romans call Friday after Venus? Yes, the Romans called Friday Dies Veneris, which translates to Day of Venus. It had nothing to do with the new term that they got out today. Um, what was the other one? So here it is. The Greeks called Saturday Hera Chrono or Day of Cronus, and the Romans called Saturday after Saturn. Okay, the Roman god of agriculture identifies with the Greek Cronus. See, so that had nothing to do with our calendar. Now, when we go here to the Julian calendar, right? It says Julian calendar dating system established by Julius Caesar as a reform of the Roman Republican calendar. When you go to the Roman Republican calendar, Roman Republican calendar dating system that evolved in Rome prior to the Christian era. According to legend, Romulus, the founder of Rome, instituted the calendar in about 738 BC. This lunar calendar, which in turn was derived from the Babylonian, the original Roman calendar appears to have consisted only of 10 months and of a year of 304 days. The remaining 61 and a quarter days were apparently ignored, resulting in a gap during the winter season. The months bore the names Martius, Aprilis, Maius, Junius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November, and December. The last six names correspond to the Latin words for the number 5 through 10. The Roman ruler Numa Pompilius is credited with adding January at the beginning and February at the end of the calendar to create the 12-month year. In 452 BC, February was moved between January and March. It says, by the first century BC, the Roman calendar had become hopefully confused. See, so how can you follow a calendar that's based off of confusion, right? It says the year based on cycles and phases of the moon total 355 days, about 10 and a quarter days shorter than the solar year. The occasional intercalation of an extra month of 27 or 28 days called Mercedonius kept the calendar in step with the seasons. The confusion was compounded by political maneuvers. The pontifex maximed the calendar, and they sometimes did so to reduce or extend the term of a particular magistrate or other public official. Finally, that resulted in the establishment of a new dating system, the Julian calendar, which was agree the fifth certain date because of the scriptures. You know, let's go real quick to Genesis. right? Chapter 1 and verse 14. It says, "And the Most High said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years." So this is how you set it up. This is why it said, "And the evening and the morning were the first day," so on and so forth, because the day starts in the evening. When the day dawns and the sun is going down and the sun is finally set, that begins a day, evening to evening. All right. And the moon, the sun and the moon, stars, all that, they were set up for signs and seasons and days and years. It says, "And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon earth." And it was so. And the power made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So the greater light is the sun, lesser light is the moon. Right? That was pretty much the main point out of here. So let's go to the Apocrypha. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus 43. I mean, this is something we've been going over and over and over again, but every once in a while the Spirit jumps on us to do it. Matter of fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Elder Pastor just went over something this not too long ago. Ecclesiasticus 43:6. "He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times," because from the moon is where we get our time. A declaration of times. This is why you had the watchers, at night. This is why you had Issachar, right? Let's go to 1 Chronicles 12:32. "And the children of Issachar, Hebrew, Yashashkar, means he is hired, which were men that had understanding of the times." See, because you had those that watch. This is why you had something called the Mayan calendar, because they were the watchers, the ancient watchers. Scripture says the Spirit bears witness with our spirit that we are the sons of the living power. So they were the ancient watchers. So it said they had understanding, bayana, which is understanding, and then you have here of the times, ith, which is time, right? Time of an event, time usual, experience, fortunes, occurrence, occasion. And what would they do? They would watch to see what was coming. They would watch, to know when the new moon was coming in, so that they could say, okay, we're approaching the end of the month. The new moon is coming in. Blow the trumpet on the new moon, and then from there would begin the next cycle. And the new moon is also a Sabbath. All right. The new moon is also a Sabbath. Let's show that real quick. Let's go to Amos chapter 8 and verse 5. It says, saying, "When will the new moon be gone?" Why? "That we may sell corn," because you couldn't sell corn or you couldn't do business on the Sabbath. And the Sabbath, or the new moon, was a Sabbath, but the new moon was also the first day of the month, which began the cycle for that period of time, which was 29.35 days, I believe it is. And every cycle of the moon was exact. You had the 28 days in the week. Then you had the transition day, which was the time when the new moon was coming in, because the moon has a cycle. And that's why you have different stages of the light. The sun doesn't have that, because the sun wasn't set up to keep time. The sun was set up in that fashion, in that form, but the moon was what dictated the times. And this is why you had the watchers. You had the Issacharites watching the moon. They constantly were watching the moon. That's how you knew when the new month was coming in. The Sabbaths, the work days, the high holy days, so on and so forth, the feast days. All right. "And the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances of deceit. Let's go from there to Lamentation, chapter 4, and verse, is it 4? No, I'm sorry, it's chapter 2. Let's go back. In verse 19, arise, cry out in the night, in the beginning of the watches. You know why? Because you had when the night was coming in, that was the beginning of the watches. You had 4 watches. Each one was about 3 hours long. See, so when the sun went down, that began the first watch. Then you had the second watch and the third watch. Because at night is when most people were sleeping, and there was the camps were more vulnerable. So you had to have watchers watching. Pour out thine heart like water before the face of the Lord. Lift up thy hands toward him for the life of thy young children that faint for hunger in the top of every street. Let's see what it says in other translations. NLT, rise during the night and cry out. Pour out your hearts like water. Okay, that doesn't say much. What about the NIV? Right, NIV is better. Arise, cry out in the night as the watches of the night begin. See? So that's when the watch would begin. You have 4 watches. Let's see something. Let's go to interlinear. Right, so it has just like a compound word, ashamara, because shamar is to watch, observe. Ashamara, watch, a period of time, night watch. Okay, so it's a compound word. Right, so pretty much this compound word is chopped up. Looks like, if I'm not mistaken, first watch, Ashamara or Ra'ash Mara, or yeah, Ra'ash, Ashamara, Hatha Yakawana. So you had the first watches. For 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night. See? Yeah, because the night comes and it goes. And the night was the first watch. All right, so let's go from there let's go real quick to Psalms. And the IUIC breaks this down totally wrong. Psalms 81 and 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast days. Now I wonder how the hell, right, they figured out that this part here is the full moon, because it doesn't say full moon there. And they tell us we can't break we can never break down our doctrine in English. So how the fuck did they find out that this was talking about this right here, this part here is full moon? Could they have happened to look up the Hebrew? Inquiring minds want to know. Now when we go to the Bibles, NLT, blow the ram's horn at new moon and again at full moon to call a festival. Because the high holy days, they normally fell at the full moon, which is the middle of the month. This is why the Passover falls on the 14th day at evening, which is technically the beginning of the 15th day. You had the Feast of Tabernacle that fell around the same time. Those are major high holy days. Okay, NIV, sound the ram's horn at the new moon and when the moon is full on the day of our festival. So there were different times when you would blow the trumpet. And what were the trumpets for? It was as an alarm. That's why you had Issachar, and they saw, okay, the moon it's about to be the new moon. Then they will blow the horn. Ooh, new moon coming in. All right, so it's a feast day. It's a Sabbath, and this is what begins, the count for the next month, because they didn't have calendars back then like that. The calendar was the moon, and that's how you kept track of time. And that's why there's so much confusion in all these different calendars, because they left off from the original way of keeping time. And that's why here in Daniel 7:25, it says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High. This is dealing with that small horn. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Right, and they wore out the saints of the Most High. Another scripture that goes good with this is Isaiah 47:6, and also Revelation 17:6. And think to what? Change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand unto the time and times and the dividing of times. And we're coming to the end of his rule. This is why he's losing sway on the planet. Right? So let's look up this word change. Change time. So let's look up the word change. The word there is shana. Shana. To change, be altered. See, be changed. So what do they change, or what do they alter? Or let's go back and look at time. They alter the times. Zaman, a set time, season, because the moon already dictated what the time was. But what did Esau do? He changed that. This is why everything is off course. Psalms 82:5. I'll start at 4. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. Why? Because the man that's ruling, that's supposed to be the landlord of the earth, is not managing the earth correctly. They're not using the instruction book to run things properly. They're pretty much winging it, and you see the effects of it, because even the earth is rising up against these devils because of what they're doing. They're not good rulers. This is why everything that they do, they mimic somebody. Everything that these small hats do is not coming from the creative mind of the small hats. It's coming from Jake and other nations that they just take and incorporate, into their everyday whatever. This is why they don't have any. The scriptures call them the bases of men. The bases of men are not creators; they're destroyers. They're culture vultures. They assimilate into other people's cultures and take what they like from it and discard the rest. And that's where you see the whole earth out of course. Let's get you one more. The book of Isaiah, and this is for the believers. If you're like, well, good, keep it moving. Isaiah 24:4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. Why? Because the landlords of the earth, the Edomites, are not ruling properly. The world languisheth and fadeth away. Yeah, because the ecosystem is all messed up, because these devils done destroyed it. They ripping out of the earth the very things that are needed, for the welfare and the regeneration of the earth. The hardy people of the earth do languish. Yeah, they're lacking. They don't know what the hell is going on. Their greed is at the forefront of everything. They're just so greedy that they don't care if they destroy the planet, the people, and themselves, as long as they could just keep taking and taking and taking. It says the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. That's why everything is out of course. So for you to be an Israelite and to follow what Esau says, you're out of your mind. Following, their calendar, following anything that they do. You're out of your damn mind. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.